Just over 5 months ago, my social media use, I would say, is typical of most people that grew up with a phone. TikTok whenever I was bored, Instagram whenever I wanted to see people I kinda know, but not really anymore up to, Snapchat to talk to, honestly, no one usually. Just send a snap to keep the streaks alive, kinda felt more like a chore. Basically, I just use them whenever, which would end up being all the time. I enjoyed some of it, but as you know, it can get out of control so easily. 2/3 of Americans on average know that social media has a negative effect on them, yet still use it. It's being compared to being as addicting as some of the most addicting drugs. There's this huge divide, I feel like, when it comes to the topic of social media. It's either you do it or you did and now you don't. You look online and there's this endless amount of videos and topics of how negative social media is. Because yes, it's a problem. But unless you have 2 brain cells of memory recall, you know that. Yes, you. Quitting is a cool new self-care thing to do, which it is great. But maybe, just maybe, hear me out, maybe you still want to use it. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that. Seriously, like genuinely, okay? I'm not making an excuse, I promise. With all the negatives that we see of social media now, I feel like we forget sometimes why we do it in the first place. Like think about all the benefits that come from it. Like actually getting useful information, inspiration, building your brand, and maybe even the opportunity to create content and be paid for it. The real question is, if you're like me, is how can we step away where we get the best of both worlds? For the last 4 months, I started to really fight my lack of self-control when it comes to my social media usage, and after successfully overcoming it, I feel much more able to actually focus on what I need to, get more time in my day to be more productive, and use and enjoy social media in an actual useful way. Finding the balance is probably the hardest part, especially when it's so easy to get sucked back into the endless rabbit hole of scrolling. That's the dangerous part, how much you enjoy something and then you just start spamming it and overdoing it. That's why so many people just choose to cold turkey it altogether. But I, at least for now, have managed to not fall victim. I can confidently say that I have a decent amount of self-control now and still have the ability to still use it and not overuse it. This has been what's been helping me, as well as some other methods and ideas that could also help you. The first thing you should do is analyze how much you use it. You probably could have guessed that, but then much more importantly, when you do it, because most of the time that'll tell you why. 5 months ago, my screen time was in the per week average of 5 to 6 hours, pretty high. I would, for example, as soon as I got off from work, got changed and laid down, would binge TikTok and Instagram for at least 30 minutes minimum. And when you look at why I do it during then, that was my way of relaxing after a long shift. A terrible way to, but yeah, that was my way of winding down. So pay attention and try to understand more of when and what triggers you to start scrolling, whether it's the time of day and how you're feeling, or that you're doing it to procrastinate that essay or work project. Just be more conscious of when you do it. Also, turn off your notifications. Leave some certain ones on for some people maybe, but otherwise, just turn them off. Just be honest, like you are not missing out on anything from the notifications. That's just the reality of it. All they do is distract you and their purpose is to draw you back in. The next point is that you probably go on your phone so often because you have nothing else to do and you're bored. You might not have other activities or hobbies to do instead. I know I didn't, so try to brainstorm what you can do instead. It's a lot easier to distract yourself from your phone when you're actively focused in a different activity. To be on your phone less, you have to find things that require your full attention. Hands down, if you don't, you won't survive. I'm just telling you right now, it's a fact. What worked for me was finding some project that you like working on, which was this channel for me, and then other things like reading and meditating. If you're thinking to yourself right now, well, I don't really have any, and those all sound mid as I get it, like honestly, that was me. But at some point, you have to accept that you need to start experimenting and finding some new hobbies, or at least one. Start out with one. You do social media so much because you've become so used to it and giving it so much of your time. Time that you would already be spending doing some sort of hobby or activity otherwise. Think about it. What you're doing literally right now is probably your most consistent hobby. Your phone scrolling is a hobby. I highly recommend the activities that I just mentioned, especially because they work on increasing your probably attention span. But that doesn't mean you have to try them. But whatever you do try, especially if you know it's good for you, focus on making it as easy as you can. Start small with it. Like literally just do it for 3 minutes every day for the next week. When you think about scrolling on your phone one time, just one time, do that instead for 3 minutes for the next week. And as long as it's not freaking like jumping in a cold shower or something that you'll absolutely hate, you'll find yourself at least starting to think about that instead of scrolling on your phone. Plus, when you actually try a new hobby, you actually learn more about yourself and what you like and what you don't. It's a win-win either way. That was all stuff on how to cut back your time. Now we're going over how to keep yourself in check. Because since eventually you'll start using it less, which truthfully, it can make it more enjoyable and then addicting, which can lead to you getting the urge to start doom scrolling again. So you have to make it a lot less convenient. What worked for me was I got this app called OneSec. I'll leave a link in the description. I'm not sponsored. I have 60 subscribers, who I all of course seriously appreciate. But anyway, I bought their full deal. And what it does is that it sets up a delay to getting to the app you choose, which obviously you put on all social medias, and you set it up for 3 or 10 seconds, choose the 10-second option, and it just makes you wait. It sounds annoying, and it is at first, but literally every time thereafter when I started using it, you realize how unconsciously and often you do it. You don't even have a good reason why you're doing it, and what you could be doing instead during those 10 seconds. That gives you the time to really think about it. When you actually do want to use social media, make a plan of when you're doing it, and more importantly, that you're doing it with intention. Have a goal for why you're using it. Make it have a purpose. I'll go on TikTok now only when I might want a little inspiration and new ideas to use. Instagram when I plan on seeing the new trends and topics lately, usually in sports. And YouTube to legitimately learn new information and also study content creation aspects. Sometimes I make sure I'm careful. I'll even use it for enjoyment and scroll, but I limit it. When you complete what you intended to, either set a timer for a couple minutes or just exit the app then and there. Also, just FYI, you only get one app for free through 1 sec. So if you're trying not to spend any money, here are some other alternatives. You could either do each time you use an app, once you're finished with it, you have to delete it, and then when you want to reuse it, you have to download it. Or you could try other apps like ScreenZen, which based on the reviews says it's almost just as good and free, or ClearSpace, which I think is essentially the same thing. I haven't tried them, but definitely try it if you're serious. Set parameters, measure yourself once a week, and set a goal. Make sure that you're consistently checking your goals, what you need to make, and that should of course be just how much time you're truly spending on these apps, which the key is probably going to be time limits, which all these kinds of apps have the capabilities to help you with that. Establish boundaries, times and places you should absolutely not use it during, like first thing when you wake up or before you go to bed. I know, it sounds lame, but that's only because you're so used to it. Give it time and you'll realize how much of a difference it makes. I typically go for 10-20 minutes per app session. Honestly though, most of them will be just like 5 minutes and I don't even want to anymore. That's like where I'm at, except for YouTube sometimes. And whenever you may be tempted to not stick with your parameters or disable the apps, remember why you had these goals to cut it back in the first place. Why did you click on this video? Probably to change your life, probably to take back control, and how you spend your time in your everyday life. As James Clear wrote in his book Atomic Habits, the more immediate pleasure you get from an action, the more strongly you should question whether it aligns with your long-term goals. Question yourself every time you choose to go on your phone and use these apps with this. I hope that this video helped you and you can take some things from it. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see much more self-improvement content like this, consider liking this video and subscribing. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Focus on doing your best today and strive for progress.